is Wednesday, July 9th at 6:05 UTC. We're a couple minutes behind schedule.
What
Today,
about God's time? What time is it in God's time?
God's time, it's 2:05 p.m.
Good to
There
know.
we go.
Good.
Hello, you. Amen. Amen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amen to that. Today we have with us Kirk from Alea Research. Kirk, welcome.
Hey guys, how we doing? Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you. We've been working alongside we've been colleagues for the last little bit now, but good to have you on in the flesh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking the other day. I'm like, I was looking at this for the first time we had gotten to a Telegram DM together, and I'm like, man, it's been that long, and that
Yeah.
long. It's crazy.
That's like
Yep,
decades
time
in
flies.
DeFi years.
I know.
I looked back at I had some shares that I was granted when I was an early employee at a crypto company, and I just found out about it, and I had to email them to like go over. They're all new people there, so they're asking me my start date, and I went and I looked back, and I'm like, holy shit, it's been almost 10 years since I fucking worked there. Like, where's the time gone? It does not seem like it's been almost
Yeah,
a
you know
decade.
what's bad when it's actually
Yeah.
been a real decade, and then you're like, oh my God, in crypto years, like, it's like dog years or cat years. We're like 100 years old by far. I'm already aged a lot. But today we have Kirk from Alea. It's not Alea, Alea. You want to give a little insight to yourself and what you guys do over there?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, and a little funny story. I'm sure Vu will watch this, our CEO. But I was duking it out with him when we rebranded. I'm like, everybody's gonna think you guys know who Aaliyah is, the
Yep.
famous singer. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was like, they're gonna think that this is like a play on Aaliyah, right? And trying to get the attention from her unfortunate death. I lost out, so I couldn't get my way, but it's Aaliyah Research. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. So yeah, I guess a little bit about my story. I got into the space in 2019, like a lot of people. So I can't claim I'm an OG by any means, but I can't believe it's been this long at the same time. Yeah, I got in 2019, and I started messing around in the space. I think I got in because it was MicroStrategy or one of the Bitcoin mining stocks was exploding, and of course I was late, like I always am when I trade. And I was like, man, like I missed the boat on that. I was like, I need to figure out how I can get an edge on this shit. Uh, and so I started going down the rabbit hole. I discovered Bitcoin. I discovered Ethereum. Um, the rest was history, man. I spent like, God, probably the next 6 months just like reading and digesting like everything I could possibly find. Taking a lot of time, by the way. Um, and slowly realized I was a terrible trader. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm a terrible trader. I think the tech is going to change the world every time. Like, they get me every time with the marketing, man. Uh, so
Good,
I was
clean
like, I
tech.
can't trade. Yeah, I don't know, man. Something did not jive for me. It's never worked out with me trading. I'm a good investor when it comes to like long term, DCAing, etc. But when it comes to trading, I'm a terrible at timing the market. I'm terrible at all of that. So I was like, hey, I need to do something else. I like crypto. I hated my job at the time. I was doing construction management, kind of on the business strategy side, and I was working too much. I'm like, this is crazy. There's got to be something better out there, right? So yeah, I started getting into crypto. I worked for free for a DAO for like 6 or 7 months while I was working my previous job. So I could get my way into the industry, and then yeah, the rest is history. I joined Revelo Intel at the time. It was not Alia Research back then; it was Revelo Intel because I started using their products, and I was like, I spent so much time the last like 7, 8, 9 months just reading and researching on my own, and it was taking me so long, and then I discovered their research platform, and I was like, yeah, this is what I need in my life. They needed some BD help. They were starting to take their products from just B2C level to more of a B2B level.
Yeah.
I love to talk to people, so it was a good match at the time. So yeah, that's how I got into crypto. One of the only industries where they actually let me in without actually having some kind of proof of work on my resume, so to speak. So Yeah,
What do you
it's a
mean?
little
You
bit
didn't
bummer.
go to Harvard? You didn't graduate top of your class at MIT? You can't even be, the desk boy or the mail boy at any of these fucking New York law firms or anything, paper pushing without a mega degree anymore.
It's
Um,
crazy because
That's
some of
right.
these crypto companies, the resume is optional. Like you can apply with just a cover letter. And if your reputation, if your spiel on why you're a good candidate is appealing enough, they'll get you in for an interview and you're off to the races. Like it's one of the few industries where proof of work, I think, shows through more than anything else,
Yeah, for sure, for
or
sure.
is a
And I think
metric that is you know uh, used a bit more liberally than anywhere else.
yeah, totally agree. But no, Harvard was not on my resume. Unfortunately, Marty. I missed the Harvard train,
yeah,
unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it is the best part about the industry, though. I think like you just find so much more talent because you don't have some algorithm that's just, I mean, I'm sure we do have these algorithms now, even more, but like, it's not so much like you submit your resume, the algorithm's just looking for these key points, and then if you don't
sure,
have
sure.
those,
You don't
you don't
even
have
get
those
the
key
interview.
points, you don't even get the interview. It's just much more open, in that way. So, yeah, that's how I got into it. Kind of a weird story, actually. No financial background. I taught myself everything I know, and, yeah, for some reason the guys at Revelo Intel decided to take a shot on me.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
great. I
worked out
mean,
well.
that's one thing about the crypto space in general, especially like the crypto Twitter space. If you're in the crypto Twitter space and in the know, everybody kind of knows everybody. You meet people at conferences. I actually met Vu last week or 2 weeks ago, and met face to face and had a coffee. Actually, I gave him a ride, dude. He was gonna take the train, so I ended up giving him a ride. I just can't let him take the train in Europort land. You never know what happens on those damn trains. And caught up and everything was good. It was unbearably hot, and I say that living in Brazil, and because there was like no wind, right? So it was just like stale heat, and even though you were on the ocean, there was no breeze, and the air quality was poor. So it was
Yeah.
very interesting for me for sure. Wasn't like there was a sea mist or anything. It was just like shit air quality, and yeah, overall was a good thing. Do you want to go a little bit into what you guys do, what you guys cover,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we already know you're not a good trader, but why the research side in general over, I don't know, BD or
Yeah.
dev work or something like that. You had mentioned you're in the construction space as like a not a foreman, maybe that's not the right word, but lead team
Oh
lead.
yeah. I definitely don't have the physicality to be a foreman or to be an actual laborer on site, so I passed on that.
Yeah,
But no, I mean what we do. If you think about an investor that comes into the space, let's say they want to look at Premia or they want to look at another project, and actually Premia does probably the best job I've ever seen, by the way, with like the Premia Academy and all that. So shout out there. But um,
Thank you.
most projects in the space, they have a really really hard time kind of creating that environment where it's easy for people to do due diligence on the project. Information is scattered across the ether world, right? You've got to go to the docs, the white paper, the light paper, the blogs, you got to watch the podcast that the founder has done. You've got to you got to look at Dune, you got to look at Twitter, right? There's all these sources of information that are scattered, and this is a problem that I call information fragmentation. um, much like liquidity fragmentation. But the problem is that an investor has a terrible UX when they come into the space. They're trying to figure out, how do I invest? How do I get exposure to this project? Whether that's deploying capital directly into the project to actually use it, for hedging or for speculating or whatever, or how do I invest in the token if there is a token, and how do I assess that token? And so, what Alia Research does through our research products is we abstract all of that process away from our users, and we allow them to just come to our platform, in one spot, right? Digest our products that look at the financial background of the project. They look at the technicals. They look at the narrative as well, the narrative of what the project is doing, and why users should care about it, why other people are going to actually use this thing. And they come to our platform, they digest our products, and now they're ready to go make a decision much quicker than if they did it themselves. And so that's the premise of what we do, at Alia Research. And the way this helps, that's the way it helps consumers, the way it helps protocols. So we partner up with a lot of protocols because they're trying to solve the same problem, right? They're trying to speak to their ideal, user profile. But they're trying to do it just through crypto Twitter, usually, right? Or paying KOLs and going down that whole path. Where we want to provide like I guess a highly curated way for projects to tap into their ideal user groups, whether that's power traders, yield farmers, whatever kind of user group you're really trying to tap into. We've got that audience that we've built over the course of two and a half, 3 years now. Built in the depths of the bear market, by the way. So we know that all of the users that we've managed to convince to come onto the platform are still here. The majority of them. And so it's kind of a positive scenario for all involved. We provide unbiased research that's easy to digest for consumers. Protocols can commission that work. And in so doing, it makes it free for any user to access, which is kind of cool. So we don't like to double dip in terms of who's ultimately subsidizing the business and allowing us to continue to create this content. We want to just make sure it's fair all around and it's unbiased and people can trust it are the most important things. So yeah, that's what we do in a nutshell at Alia is we try to make investment decisions and capital deployment decisions much easier for the various parties in the space.
Yeah, we were talking this morning about you can only name like three, maybe 3 or 4 actual research companies, and you guys each do that you can trust. There's hundreds of them, but 3 or 4 that you can actually trust. You guys each do something a little bit different. You guys actually are putting out like long form papers, long term reads. The guys at the roll up are doing, like a Bloomberg TV kind of thing, like just constant information, a constant flow. And then there's a couple others, but it's a very interesting space for sure.
Yeah, but outside of the big corporate ones, you really got Alea, sorry, Blockworks, or not Blockworks, Blockmates, and the roll up. It's like you three are probably the only like non-corpo research groups that are kind of consistently giving information on new products as well as updates on past products that people are interested in the DeFi space. And other than that, it's just like I don't know. I was telling him like I don't give a shit about the developer who fucking launched the 8th like pump fun chatbot, ChatGPT chatbot clone that's boobies and backtalk. I always see these weird games. Like there was some new gambling one that was like stuff like that, and it's just like I'm not interested in that.
Yeah, it's like regurgitated just information over and over. And even we were talking about like, interviews. We try to make this a little less like an interview and more just like a open talk. We all talk. We can, go off topic. It's not as structured as these other ones. And then when you look at, I don't know, I think you said like Hayden and some others from different projects, it's like, is the 10th interview of the year for an hour. You can't even get anybody's attention span for less than 10, 15 minutes. We hope people here can jump in 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe re-listen to the whole thing on their commute, quick 30 minutes. But nobody wants to hear from a founder or anything else unless it's a crisis mode, I think we all kind of want to hear from GMX. I know we were on the docket to talk about current state of DeFi and kind of where you think DeFi is headed, but I think we can kind of quickly skim over GMX. And for people who don't know, there was a $40 million hack on V1. GMX V2 seems okay for now. they seem to poured out some of the money on various chains and not looking to return. But we had a coworker here at Premia that got hit for a decent chunk of change, unfortunately. And it's weird because they work with the biggest guys, they have the biggest security audits, they partner with all the right people, and there's still vulnerabilities in their code. I just wanted to see if you had any quick thoughts there. I know maybe you can't comment, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is, and again, I'm not a technical expert, so I won't touch on like the technicality of what happened. But what I'll say is it's unfortunate, and it just makes me feel like is nothing safe in this industry. Sometimes that's how it makes me feel. If some of these top firms that are working with some of the best security experts in the space, miss something, or again, and again, without knowing the details, I doubt this is the case, but naturally, I think it's natural for like GMX V2 comes out, a lot of people, a lot of eyes are shifting to V2, probably a lot of dev resources, etc. And obviously, they kept V1 operating, for certain reasons. And it's just unfortunate, right? I wonder if it was a kind of a split attention problem, where most of the focus was on V2. V1 was still running. V1 obviously had not suffered an exploit in how long? Like, and I don't think it ever has, to my knowledge, anyway. And so it's just unfortunate, man. It really is, how some of this stuff can get missed, and it makes me feel like sometimes I'm like, you're paying these auditors like an insane amount of money, ungodly amounts of money, right? I mean, I know a project I work with, we're spending like 250,000 on audits, and it's just,
Oh yeah, for sure.
what are you're paying this, and then something like this happens, and it's like it's on the project, obviously, but like also it's like, when are we going to get to the point where, I feel like some of the auditors also have to take kind of some skin in the game here a little bit. And again, this is just my service level reaction. I'm sure people will disagree with me, but that's how it makes me feel, for sure. And definitely shout out to GMX though. Like, I know those guys, throughout the years, they've been awesome to work with. I know they're going to work through it. I hope they can figure out a way to resolve it in a good manner for all parties involved, and ultimately, hopefully, making users as whole as possible. But yeah, it's unfortunate, the
There
amount
should
of
be
risk
some
that
sort
comes with
of
this.
insurance fund, or some like when we saw Bybit get hacked, like everybody was throwing money at them. All the big
Yeah,
exchanges were giving them loans and making them whole for the short term. And those guys make so much money, so it wasn't. Um, it was a huge hack, but they were treating it like it's cool. We got it under control. We
Yep.
got all the loans to make us whole for now. We're a profitable company. And then, Ben came out and did a public posting. And it's like, I don't think we just seen like a Twitter post like, oh, we've been hacked. And that's it. It's like, well, that's not maybe the answer. Somebody who's been hacked for a good amount of money is looking for. They want to hear from the team, and I'm sure the Discord is going absolutely crazy. So shout out to those guys, and hopefully
yeah,
there's some good resolution there. Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate. Wanted to go into the current state of DeFi. It's shifted a lot since we got in. Now a lot of the stuff is more hybrid model. It's not even 100% on chain anymore.
yeah.
Where are we looking at DeFi now, and where do you see it kind of going in the future? It's interesting to see Coinbase, partner with Morpho and some other guys, and Coinbase will be your access to DeFi, or at least KYC DeFi. And now you see, yesterday or today, Vertex got bought by, well, assumingly by Kraken, and is going to be put on the Ink chain only. But kind of see where your head is at around these kinds of acquisitions, and taking Vertex off of, I think it's 9 other chains. There's
Yep.
Yeah.
almost 10 chains,
They're on
and
9 chains
putting
right now. Yep.
9.
Yep.
Yeah. And then only solely focused on one exclusive deal. Of course, somebody probably got a nice chunk of change for that kind of deal to be played, but kind of see where your head is at, where we are now and where we're headed in the DeFi space.
Yeah, I mean, I think on like the exchange level, you're going to continue to see more of these acquisitions happening, right? Like, I mean, before this, this recent Coinbase announcement with Morpho, where they're teaming up with Morpho, what they bought Deribit, right? So there's going to be some consolidation there, and I think some mergers and acquisitions going on as these exchanges really try to position themselves for this supposed inflow of net new capital coming into the space with the regulations kind of getting better in the U.S. and in other markets. So I think it's kind of like everybody's trying to position themselves for those flows. And the thing about crypto is that there's a very, very small portion of the population that actually knows how to operate a protocol on chain, right? Has experience growing a protocol on chain, has experience building, on Ethereum, or on some of these other blockchains. And so, if you've got the resources to make an acquisition like that, then I think it makes perfect sense, because it's going to be hard to kind of build up I think your expertise and get to the point where you're ready to compete with Coinbase and now Robinhood, right? And some of these other players that are kind of coming in very, very heavily now into this on-chain future. So that's where I think we're at right now. I think it's an arms race, for a lot of these exchanges to try to position themselves, for more retail flow, and then also for like institutional flow, and kind of convince these parties that their platform should be the platform that they transact on and they earn yield on, and they do everything on, right? So it's kind of like the transformation of these exchanges truly into like these super apps is what I think we're starting to see. And then I think it's going to be a big battle, to ultimately see who survives and who wins.
Having experience for every type of user. If you want, your trusted, centralized exchange with low latency and KYC and MiCA regulation and all that, so that where the funds aren't
Yep.
dirtied with, we'll say. They have that for you. If you prefer to trade on chain, they can host that for you. They have their own wallet. They have their own their own DeFi ecosystem that they're going to foster. What is going on? Oh, we're on Kick now, so now we have Kick Chat going up, Marty.
Finally, some revenue from this damn thing. The Kick revenue is where it's all at. No, we do it all for free.
Yeah.
I got to get it. Where's my revenue cut for this episode then?
Exactly. With 12 cents, I think is what we got so far. No, I have no idea. We just turned it on. Yeah, I, that's interesting to know. Like these super apps. We had a guest on maybe last year, and it was or earlier this year, right around the Morpho pickup and integration with Coinbase, and he was talking. He's a more TradFi trader, and he was talking about like Coinbase is your gateway to DeFi. You're going to have KYC DeFi with all these huge institutions, and they need a trusted counterparty, a bank, a middleman, a clearinghouse, whatever term you want to use. They can't just talk to each other. I guess they could in OTC deals, but it's much easier just to do something through a middleman. But it's interesting to hear like the super app, right? So you have DGens, you have TradFi, Kraken bought NinjaTrader for $1 billion, bought them for $1 yard. So, I mean, we're seemingly progressing much, much faster in the past a year and a half, right? March is when the ETFs came. But this year you had all this new president, new regulations, new guidelines, supposedly all coming. And we haven't seen like the new guidance and regulation. It just seems more like, okay, it's free for all. Let's just go for it. And if we get hit later, then we'll deal with it then. But we haven't seen like this clear-cut guidance regulation on crypto. They're talking about it, which is a start. They're not suing people anymore. That's definitely a start. But we're not seeing this like just like guidance, like public guidance. It's just kind of like, okay, it's open, so it's a free for all. So everybody's doing their own chain, everybody's buying whatever they can. I think you said it best, like a just open the floodgates. But it's interesting to see. I don't think we need like one major player. Other people are like, oh, well, think about it.
Yeah.
Like there's multiple banks, which is fine, but they all still need to talk to each other. And right now, when we have Base and we have Inc. and we have Ripple Chain and we're still segregating capital. We're not necessarily solving the capital segregation, which was what we currently have now with money on, I don't know, hundreds of chains. And I don't know what L9, what layer are we on now? You never know, right? So we need still like a centralized database or like a one main player that everybody connects to, talks to, trusts. And I think Cozy's making that bet on ETH. But it's interesting to see that all these guys like just create their own chain. Even Robinhood, the Robinhood chain, is not a very original name, but they're doing it on Arbitrum first, and then they're going to bring it all in house. They need to control the chain. They need to be
No.
able to
They're
claw it
still
back.
going to do it on Arbitrum. They're gonna launch an Orbit chain, which is their own L2, L3, however you want to brand it,
L9.
or depending on like how they build it, will depend on how it's branded. I should say, like whatever specifications they have for it. But I think it's totally normal. Like people think it's crazy, and they're like, why are these companies doing their own chain? Like because a blockchain is just a database and they all already run their own databases. So why, if they believe in like a digital world or the world's going on chain, why would they not have their own blockchain? It makes total sense. Like Netflix and Hulu don't share databases right now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
Yeah, I had to think about that. I'm like, wait a minute, no, Disney doesn't own them. Yeah, so
They could. They definitely could, though.
Yeah.
To me, it's not weird at all. It's like it's totally expected. If you think that the world is going on chain, and even if you don't, if you think that the world will accommodate on chain, then you should expect every company will have its own blockchain. And whether that's public or private, we'll see. But every company will. I think just
Well, they're just
blockchains
taking
or
it off of
distributed
fucking
databases
AWS. They're
are
just taking it off
inherently
of a Excel spreadsheet. Like, you know how many times Excel gets screwed or somebody accidentally deletes a column or a row, and
that was the
there's a
next point.
social
Yeah, I mean, like
security hack, and oh, that was just a line item. Oops, sorry, it was just sitting there.
yeah, distributed databases and blockchains where like you're enabled to ensure that all of your transactions or all of your inventory is there. You can see where everything's gone, what item went to what plate, and this kind of goes into, we've talked about it before, but like Jesse from Base, he's always talking about like the world on chain and like how everything is going to be a token, and he has a really bad way of like translating it and relaying it. But I do believe in what he's saying, because all he's saying is that like that can of soup will have an NFT for it, right? Like it makes sense for it to, because it's an item that should be tracked and should be it's part of a collection. And like it solves so many distribution issues that like exist right now in logistics. And people that like don't have any experience, I never worked in logistics, I have family that does, but like people that don't know anything about that would have no idea why that would make sense. They're like, why would you want an NFT on every piece of fish that goes off?
I
Like
just
that,
don't think it was
stupid.
presented correctly the first time, right? We had monkeys and, punks, and, it just wasn't presented correctly when
Yeah.
on the institutional side, or, logistics and shipping, or, warehouses, like everything is
Well, art is
ticketed.
fun,
Everything has a
like
barcode. Everything's a line item. It's just going to be a private ledger, or, they're not going to put, Amazon warehouse deliveries on public, right? But that's the future, and blockchain technology is the future, not necessarily like Robinhood coin. Like I'm not sure Robinhood's gonna launch a coin. You already have the stock. You can buy equity. You can trade equity. You can take loan against that equity. We already have that legitimacy in TradFi. It's just about porting those guys over in kind of the middle. I'm not sure we're going to have, you know, Coinbase. It's going to be tokenized, meaning it can be bought, sold, shared, transferred instantly, and you're not going to have T plus 2 days. You're not going to have all these crazy clearinghouses sitting on your money for 2 days. Yeah, I think we're just more headed towards like an instant economy over um, this old boomer TradFi land. It's going to take a long time to port them out and push that out and bring in a new system. But I think, it takes a Robinhood, it takes a Coinbase to really start. Robinhood already started with 24-hour trading. They
Right.
partnered with some company called Blue something, I think. I don't
I
want
think
to.
was it Bitstamp? Is that you're talking about?
No, they did like TradFi with I think it was called Blue something. It was like 24-hour traded, X amount of volume could be traded overnight. And you saw like GME, hit those limits. Of course, like they'll trade it within a range. And then of course they'll halt trading if it's moving too much overnight, which I think we saw with GME. GME and AMC and that whole craze. But like it should be 24 hours a day. It should be, T plus zero. It should be instant settlement. You shouldn't have to sit and wait for your money for 2 days, especially like a share or a stock. Switching hands. Um, yeah, we're
Yeah.
headed towards an instant economy, which we're already
Yeah.
seeing with kids on TikTok and their attention. Right, it's already 2 seconds. So how are they going to wait for their money for 2 days? Let alone a Friday to a Monday or a Tuesday. That's not going to fly in the next generation.
Yeah, agree. And I think I think you hit it on the head there, right? Whereas like blockchain technology represents like a huge upgrade for them in terms of like settlements, composability, tokenizing everything, etc.
Data
Um,
storage.
yeah, data storage. Like, I mean, the list goes on, right? But the one thing I just thought about too is like, we talked about liquidity fragmentation, and I still think that problem only gets worse because, like, you know, these companies, Coinbase, Binance, Robinhood, they're not going to give a shit, about liquidity fragmentation. They own their distribution already. They own their users for the most part. They're just trying to, amplify it even more. So they don't necessarily care, I don't think, about like solving liquidity fragmentation, across these chains.
Yeah.
They don't, they're not looking to solve that problem. So I think that problem is only going to keep getting worse, and that's why I do like teams um, that are actually trying to solve that problem. But I wonder, like, once that problem gets solved, and let's say it's, I don't know, name an interoperability company, or name like a DeFi.app, or
Yeah. DeFi.
Infinex, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Infinex. Like, name one of those companies that's really trying to solve that problem. Well, once they solve it, do users want to use that, or do they want to use Robinhood, or do they want to use Coinbase? And it's going to be kind of interesting to see how this all plays out. You know, as things develop in the next couple of years. Because we've been, and at least on chain, all the on chain natives have been saying, hey, we need to solve liquidity fragmentation X, Y, and Z. We want institutions to come on chain. We got to solve this problem. And meanwhile, the institutions are probably not even interested in it.
No,
They
they'll
don't
just create
care.
their own. I've been saying this, that
Yeah.
they'll just create their own. They'll use our base layer, or L9 all the way to L9 to get it started and bootstrapped. But then after that, they're just going to use their own, and that's fine. They control it. They can not manipulate, but they can backtrack if there's a hack. They can blacklist people. Like no compliance team is going to let, I don't know, some US bank just sit on chain with, all of trillions or billions of customers' dollars sitting in
Oh
some
no.
random L2. They need to control it. They need to have full control. It's just going to be instant. So maybe we won't even know that we're using blockchain in the back. It's just like, hey, your transfer's been sent. Your share has been sold. Your money's in your account. Like that. And I don't think that the end user necessarily cares at the end of the day either. We care. We want to know what the tech is, but like
Right.
your grandma doesn't care, your parents don't care. Like they just want their money now. So, while we're headed towards this instant economy, um, instant gratification economy, it will be, I think it's coming faster and faster than what we thought. I was thinking, maybe 10 years, and I think we're in like the 2 to 5 year range for that kind of stuff, especially if Robinhood's launching their own thing and going to be testing it on their users. It only takes somebody, acquiring Robinhood or using their tech. Copy paste gig.
Yeah, agree. I mean that's more on like the, I guess the retail level, on like the super app level. I mean, but in terms of like what else is going on in DeFi, I am super bullish on, everything going on with stable coins. Obviously finally getting I think some regulations passed for stables. Um, huge step forward. Obviously, again, stable coins are a massive product improvement from what is currently used for settlement in most cases. Um, so that's going to be awesome to see. But again, I try to think about like how can we as an industry get exposure to these things, right? Like some of the stuff you're not going to be able to get exposure to, and I'm hoping it's ETH. Like hopefully it's it's the base asset, the base layer that everything is settling on, is also getting the love from the market that it deserves. But that's something else I've been starting to think about too. Is like a lot of these things are happening, and it's not exactly like you can go get exposure to these positive developments. And so everybody's calling for another bull run, altcoins popping off. But what altcoin actually has exposure to any of the developments that we're talking about on this call right now? Not many, if any, right? So that's something else I've been
Yeah,
trying to
not many
think
at
through
all.
myself. So we'll see, But it's, I mean, in terms of like the health of the industry, I think it's a lot healthier than, I mean, well, 2 years ago, I mean, it was in a really, really bad spot in terms of where DeFi was. Um, and I think, finally, there's some light at the end of the tunnel for things, things like this to continue to happen. But also, while those things are happening, it gives more room for everybody else to continue operating and iterating and building awesome products, decentralized products, to serve, I think, what will end up being, I think you said it earlier, Marty or Cozy, like there will be like this permissionless DeFi, and then there will be permissioned DeFi, right? And it's just kind of, as a
Yeah.
user, like where are you comfortable transacting, right? And what risks are you taking?
Yep. Yeah, we've seen protocols kind of prep for this already. Like, you had Aave with Aave Black, I think, was it? Is that their institutional product or their kind of permission pools product they have? And then Maker has one as well. I forgot what they call theirs. But I know the more foundational DeFi products were kind of getting themselves ready for this 2 years ago ish. Um, and I still think that'll be the case. Like, I don't think it'll just be off chain or on chain. There's going to be like people who are not on chain and institutional capital are going to want exposure to some of the risk to get that outsized reward that DeFi offers. But the risk that they don't want to take is that their money is being mixed with, sanctioned individuals, countries, or, known money launderers. So I think there will be whether or not DeFi and crypto purists believe in it. I think there's a place for permissioned DeFi in a sense alongside permissionless DeFi.
Absolutely.
I'm there with you guys. I'm there. We need to have some sort of KYC to get the big guys in, the big fish in. But when it comes to small retail guys, I mean, at the end of the day, they just want their money as soon as possible. They don't necessarily care if it's KYC or not KYC or institutional or not. I mean, heck, at the beginning of Robinhood, or maybe even now, it wasn't even a real bank, right? It was a whitelisted bank that offered a debit card for its users, and it was like Evolve Bank or Trust or Metropolis or Metropolitan Bank. Sorry, like one of these whitelisted services that just offered a debit card to its users, and people were putting their money on a fintech app. Like retail users have a lot of trust for all kinds of that kind of stuff. You even saw BlockFi and all that, right? Where institutions would never fall for that trap at the very, very beginning.
The BlockFi thing was crazy because I had family members who, were somewhat you could say new to on the exposure level to crypto, and they were sticking all their money in that kind of stuff because they thought, this is an app, it's safe. It's not some. Well, let me rephrase that. This is an app in the App Store, so it must
It's
be
safe.
for me. To
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to go to a website and download some other wallet and do these weird connections and like find a way to get money. I just download this and here I have exposure. And
It's
that really
trusted by Apple.
Yep.
Right.
That's the legitimate like thought process. Like it's in here on Apple, so it's got to be okay.
That's right. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I got to jump for my next meeting, unfortunately.
Alrighty. Thanks for
But I
jumping
really,
on.
really
I know we
appreciate
went
you
a
guys
little
having me.
over.
No, all good, all good. Anytime, man. Love to do it again sometime.
Likewise,
Talk soon.
likewise. For our listeners, we will be back Friday morning on Eden. If you're not already following Alea Research, make sure you follow at Alea Research. And then Kirk, shout out your Twitter so people can follow you. It's on the post, so you guys can go and just click there if you want the safe link. But go ahead and show yourself.
That's right.
Kirk.
It's at 0xkmac. Follow me for some DeFi insights, but mostly if you're an NBA fan, follow me there. So there we go.
There you go.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice show. Love it.
Take care,
Later,
guys.
Kirk.
Thanks.
Yep.
Later, Cozy.